Have you been feeling a little sluggish lately? Maybe not having enough energy? Maybe even you're noticing, why are my pec muscles turning more into looking like boobs? Yeah, so this could actually be a sign that you're accumulating too much estrogen in your body and you're suppressing your testosterone. Today, we are going to be looking at ways you can lower the estrogen in the body and increase your testosterone. Let's get into it. And don't forget to stick around to the end, because I'll be revealing something that's found in the grocery store, in your home, that you may not even realize that's also increasing estrogen in your body. What's going on? My name's Andy J. I'm here to help millennial men feel our best. Welcome to the Brotherhood. Like I said at the top of this video, we are looking at ways that you can lower estrogen and increase testosterone. Because something you have to understand is, as we age beyond our 20s, really, the amount of estrogen in our body begins to rise and rise and rise. So we have to be really conscious of what's in our environment to help keep our estrogen down. And before diving in, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that bell icon so you're notified for future videos that come out for how we can optimize your hormones, increase your testosterone, and so much more. Also, don't forget to drop a comment below and let me know about your thoughts as far as like what you think in your environment could be possibly raising your estrogen. Do you think you have high estrogen? Anything related to that topic is really important for our channel. So today we're going to be focusing on 4 ways to lower the estrogen in the body. The first topic is going to be focusing all around diet. Now, the first piece to this puzzle, and it's a little bit controversial topic, but I can tell you that if you're mindful of this, you will help lower the amount of estrogen in your body, is being mindful of polyunsaturated fats. This counts as omega-6s and also omega-3s. So I'm not a big fan of fish oil because there is an issue there as far as with the polyunsaturated fat. It still is a polyunsaturated fat. In my opinion, and I can make other videos on this, in my opinion, having too much of this PUFA in your body will cause what's called lipid peroxidization. It's damaging to the cells. Any type of stress response that occurs is going to actually increase estrogen. Estrogen is a stress hormone. This is the way I see it. I can link other studies in the future on this topic because I know it is a controversial topic, but just to get this out of the way, I'm going to show you this paper right here, which is a connection to the title of this paper is The Effects of Dietary Fish Oil on Lipid Peroxidization in Humans. There's also a lot of animal studies that show this, but as far as showing from a human standpoint, this is a good study. On the topic of omega-6s, these have for a while been known to be problematic for our health. It's been shown that they signal the stress pathways or the inflammation pathways in our body. Some common foods that are very high in omega-6s would be like nuts, for example. They're higher in the 6 than the omega-3s, so that's something to be mindful of there. And the final piece I want to talk about, the reason why there's so much confusion around fish oil and omega-3s being so helpful, is that actually there is a downregulation of metabolism that causes a suppression of your immune system. And so if you take any type of drug, for example, that will lower your immune function, observably through studies you could do on someone, you would see an improvement in their health markers because immune system response is low, and then therefore it is not giving feedback to any types of stresses that are happening in the body. So this is why actually I think there is confusion largely in the medical community around this. But there are more and more studies to show the connection of all types of polyunsaturated fats being problematic from an overall health standpoint, and why we should then understand that. And if you look at it from that perspective and then look at these other studies, they start to make a lot more sense why the data gets confused. And then you can take a step back and just try to avoid all polyunsaturated fats as much as possible. It's impossible to completely avoid them because they're in most animal products, but not supplementing with polyunsaturated fats will do you so much good in the long run. The final thing I want to talk about this, and then I'll move on to the next piece to this topic, is that you may say, oh, are there these giant bodybuilder types that are advocating for fish oil and then they're telling their audience to take fish oil? Well, I can guarantee that they're probably supplementing with testosterone and that they're also probably taking aromatase inhibitors because they're noticing that their estrogen is getting too high, and most of them are probably getting gynecomastia surgery because they're getting man boobs. So it kind of makes you think, I'm not going to say it's all because they're supplementing with fish oil, but it's certainly not helping the situation. The next food that you can eat in moderation, but There is, and it's a little bit of a controversial topic, is the topic of soy, because soy is what's considered a phytoestrogen. It mimics how estrogen works in the body. So there's studies that show on both sides of this, it not being a problem and it being a problem. But what I always like to think is, like, I like to err on more of the conservative side and try to best mitigate any of these problems. So what I would say is, if you want to consume soy, fermented soy products are relatively safe, but I don't recommend consuming tofu, soy milk, any kind of unfermented soy product. If you can remove those out of your diet, I think that is a better way to go. Fermented soy, I don't think it's as much of an issue, so keep that in mind. And the final one is too much refined carbohydrates. So what this means is, like, if you're eating a bunch of purely refined sugar without proteins and fats with it, it's going to be very stressful to your insulin system. And if your blood sugar regulation system gets thrown off, you're going to actually store more energy in your body, which is basically stored as adipose tissue or fat. And the more fat you store, the more estrogen you're going to produce. So the main takeaway here is, I don't like to necessarily demonize carbohydrates as a whole. You just want to make sure that carbohydrates are paired with proteins and fats so the body can balance them and keep your blood sugar regulated. And if you can do that, you can happily consume carbohydrates, even refined carbohydrates, in, situations here and there, and it's not going to be a big deal. But keeping that in mind, excess carbohydrates, excess fats, excess proteins, any of those in excess at any time is going to cause stress. So again, I don't like to demonize one particular macronutrient group. It's just about having it in good balance and being able to understand how these macronutrients work in the body so you can regulate them and pair different macronutrients together so they work better in your body. So the main takeaway as far as the diet piece goes is just make sure that you're being mindful of PUFA intake. One other little quick tip that just popped into my mind is, if you are consuming something that's a little bit higher in polyunsaturated fats, maybe you're eating something with some fried oil or something, taking a vitamin E supplement can also be really helpful at minimizing some of the stress and harm. The main idea is we want to find ways to decrease stress in the body, therefore decreasing additional fat being put onto our body, because fat cells produce estrogen. Another great tool, and this is number 2, as far as how to regulate the excessive estrogen being built up in our system, is basically using, and this is a foundational thing, exercise and physical activity. So I'm a big fan of resistance training. That's going to obviously allow you to use more energy, because the more muscle you put on your body, the higher your metabolic rate will be, which will then burn a lot of that extra fat off your body over time. Cardio is really good, but I'm not a big fan of using cardio as a fat burning strategy. I like using cardio as a way to keep your metabolism up. Really, the best way to lower body fat in the body is putting yourself in a calorie deficit. And so basically the takeaway here is, try to exercise at least 4 times a week, whatever can fit your schedule. I've made other videos as far as like making sure that the exercise intensity is high enough depending on the volume of exercise. So for example, if you exercise more frequently, you don't have to actually exercise as intensely. If you don't have enough time to exercise that often, you may want to exercise in a more intense way, going to failure more often, things of that nature, and that will help make up for the gap of you not being able to be physical. Walking every day is also very important. Some light cardio. You don't have to do crazy sprints or anything like that. Just getting your steps in every day is really important. Another foundational principle that is so important to lower estrogen in the body is just making sure you're getting enough sleep. One thing I always like to emphasize is not so much the hours of sleep, but it's the quality. So making sure that when you do wake up, you don't feel groggy, you don't feel like you need to keep hitting the alarm clock. You feel like you can just get out of bed and you feel well rested. That's a good indication that your sleep is good. A lot of times people have issues with maybe mouth breathing. As we get older, most of us have some degree of light apnea. And so teaching ourselves to close our mouth, maybe using mouth tape or some kind of medical tape, where just make sure you take off enough adhesive so you're not pulling your lips off when you take it off in the morning. But keeping your mouth shut trains you to breathe more through your nose. It will open up your breathing pathway. It's a little difficult at first. So what you can maybe do is put it just down the middle of your mouth so you can breathe a little bit through the corners of your mouth if you need to, so you don't feel like you're suffocating. But If this becomes an ongoing issue and you also seem that you just can't seem to get over the mouth tape, I would say at that point, go to your doctor and see if you can get a sleep study done to see if you actually are experiencing apnea. Some other things that are important too, there's sleep and then also stress regulation. So finding a practice that works for you, that you find that you're actively lowering the amount of stress. It could be meditation. It could be doing something else where you're kind of getting out of your head a little bit, playing music, going on walks and things like that's good. Journaling's really good. Any of those and all in between are really good. I'm a big fan of meditation because I feel like it is a way to kind of hack your brain, but it takes practice and dedication. And it's like going to the gym. It's not always the most fun thing to do. So you have to kind of just make a routine around that. And the fourth section would be some natural supplements that you could possibly take to lower estrogen in the body. The first one that I want to talk about is DIM or DIM. This is actually an extract from cruciferous vegetables, I believe, but it has been shown to actively lower estrogen. Zinc has also been shown to lower estrogen, but you have to be careful with supplementing with zinc because the problem is that a lot of people overlook when they supplement with zinc is zinc competes against copper in the body. They share a similar pathway of absorption, and it's actually more difficult to get copper from our diet because copper actually has to be activated with vitamin A, and so it's a more complicated thing. So what happens is if you're supplementing with zinc, you're overloading that absorption pathway. Copper is not going to get into the system, into your body. And then from that, if you're not absorbing enough copper, you can actually increase inflammation in your body because your iron in the way you make hemoglobin, that system then gets out of whack. So you have to be mindful of that. I personally don't recommend supplementing with zinc. Instead, I recommend eating like 1 can of water-packed oysters per week. That tends to get you all the zinc you need. And for whatever reason, because it has maybe more of the cofactors and everything, because it's a natural whole food, the body seems to be able to have an easier time absorbing the zinc without throwing off the copper absorption. Also, oysters contain some copper as well, so it's not just an isolated nutrient. And the last nutrient that is also very important, it's another mineral that I would argue is probably the most important mineral in the body that everyone should be supplementing with, is magnesium. Magnesium glycinate or magnesium malate are some of my favorites. Magnesium glycinate is good for calming the body. Magnesium malate gives you a little bit more energy. And so both of those are really good. Look for those. I usually will put some links in my description as far as my recommendation for magnesium. But the short end of it is magnesium used in over 300 different enzymatic processes in the body. Anytime you want to make energy or ATP in the body, you need magnesium. So it's a very, very important nutrient. So if you're lacking this nutrient, which most people are because you cannot get it from our food supply anymore because there's not enough magnesium present in the soil, and we use too much because when we're stressed, we use up magnesium, you need to be supplementing with more. A quick tip about dosaging with magnesium, one that I find to be pretty useful, is so you take your height in centimeters, multiply that by 5, and that is roughly about how many milligrams of magnesium you need per day. Now, I want to emphasize it's per day. You don't want to take all of that all at once, or I guarantee you're going to have some toilet time because it will actually cause you to have loose stool. So you want to space it out throughout the day and allow your body to get used to it. You may actually need to start with a lower amount, and over the course of weeks, work your way up to a higher amount of magnesium to that ideal level, and then run with that for a while and see how it feels. Try that out. Let me know if you have any questions on that because I can do other videos on that topic. So the bonus tip for staying to the end, I said there was like some hidden thing in grocery stores and in your kitchen that you need to be aware of. And what it really is it's plastics. So plastics are considered to have what's called a xenoestrogen effect. So it's a chemical estrogen that the body will absorb, and it can basically raise our estrogen levels. When you go to the grocery store and you're buying produce or meat that's wrapped in plastic, that can technically increase the amount of estrogen. What I recommend is like just don't buy vegetables or meat that have been just sitting out in the plastic material. If you, of course, like go to the butcher or put it in a plastic bag, it doesn't really matter. But the food that's been packaged in plastic for a long period of time and that's been sitting and just sitting out, that's the ones that I think are more problematic. As far as like bottles go, a lot of the bottles now are BPA free, but there's these alternatives to BPA that are arguably not as good as well, and that can also cause some hormonal disruption. The main issue is like if you're buying bottled water, there's a little bit of a risk there because if the water you're buying could be sitting in crates, sitting out in the sun before they put it into the store, it's basically the sun is pulling the estrogen into the bottle. That's also like if you leave a bottle of water in the car and it's been getting baked in, you're probably drinking estrogen water. So keep those things in mind as another tip to help lower the amount of estrogen. And if you can lower the amount of estrogen, naturally your testosterone levels will also increase. So I hope you found that useful and interesting, and you can start playing with these things. Let me know if you've tried any of this or noticed any of this. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell icon if you haven't already, to support the channel and let us grow so we can help more men feel our best. And I think that's it for now. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will talk to you soon.